Tonight, the King 5 investigators exposed that federal inspectors have found dozens of violations at 3 of our state's institutions for the developmentally disabled.
The problems range from leaving vulnerable clients strapped to chairs and toilets for long periods of time to exploiting them financially. As Susanna Frame reports in her ongoing series, Last of the Institutions, the violations are so severe, the feds are withholding federal funds.
Do you believe that the residents there deserve better than the abuse and neglect that they've been subject to?
That's John EMMYS in the blue hat. He's with the advocacy group People First that organized this protest in Spokane 2 years ago. They're demanding change at the nearby institution for people with developmental disabilities, Lakeland Village. Here's John EMMYS from the protest.
I was shocked. I was really upset that, this is the kind of care that people were receiving there.
In 2013 and 14, federal inspectors found thousands of serious violations at the facility's nursing home wing. They yanked federal funding and even threatened to shut the place down altogether. The feds found what amounted to warehousing people with absolutely no planned activities for many of the residents. A medical system in disarray, missing physician's orders, leading to inappropriate therapies and medication mistakes, and an over-reliance on restraints, people tied in a chair, facing the wall or television for long periods of time.
Trapped into chairs, being left there, getting the wrong medications, horrifying, As a person, you and I would never want to go through something like that.
Lakeland Village rushed to make changes and got back into good standing with the feds. But that was just the beginning. Last year, the inspectors showed up to find a pattern of failures at other facilities. Fircrest and Shoreline, the Rainier School in Buckley, and back at Lakeland Village in Spokane. The King 5 investigators have found for the first time in 30-plus years, 3 of our state's 4 institutions flunked their federal surveys. The inspectors found so many infractions they took drastic action. All 3 lost federal funding. That meant a freeze on new admissions and the threat of being shut down.
This was really an unusual event. It was a huge wake-up call for us.
Don Klinsman oversees all of the institutions for DSHS.
We are really looking at correcting the entire system in a really significant way to make sure that staff get to doing the work the right way and doing the right work that people need to have done.
So what did the inspectors find? At Fircrest, clients spending significant amounts of time just sitting with no meaningful activity. They cited the facility for not reporting allegations of abuse and neglect. And they found financial exploitation, staff using clients' money for cooking programs. They spent hundreds of dollars on things like pizza, a spaghetti dinner, and Sunday barbecues, enjoyed by clients and staff alike. The problem? A manager admitted Fircrest didn't have a cooking program.
I am very upset. I'm very disappointed.
Mike Raymond was born with a developmental disability. He spent more than 20 years, his entire childhood, here at the Rainier School, back in the days when abuse was commonplace.
They used to hit us in the back, all over.
Now he's an advocate to make institutions a thing of the past.
I think it's shitty. Pardon my French, but I think it's crap. I think it's crap. They should have closed them down a long ago.
And at Mike's old home, Rainier, inspectors found things like repeat medication errors, mistreatment of clients, such as a staff member seen kicking a resident to get him to stand up. The employee's defense, that the resident liked to be kicked. They also found clients sitting for long periods of time in restraints. The inspectors looked on as a resident sat restrained on the toilet for 27 minutes without anyone checking on him.
To think, that someone would just be strapped onto a toilet and left there, that's not humane. People who live out there deserve the dignity of good care. And there's troves of federal documentation that says that they are not receiving the care that they deserve.
Similar issues were cited back at Lakeland Village. The union that represents the 2,000-plus state employees who run the institutions say the reason for the failed inspections is easy. money. During the recession, the legislature cut funding and staff. Greg Devereaux is the executive director of the Employees Union.
In my 22 years here in the state, I've never seen state government cut so deeply as during that period. And that has a cascading effect over time. I think that's the aftermath, is those findings.
Advocates like those with the group People First don't buy it, as the institutions are the most expensive way to care for the disabled. It costs the state $200 million a year to run the 4 facilities.
Dumping millions of dollars into a system that is documented as failing several times over by the federal government is not good policy. And there isn't a legislator in this state who could look at me right now and say to this, it is not good policy.
Just last month, Lakeland Village near Spokane got a letter saying that they are now back in compliance. Furcrest and the Rainier School are still waiting for re-inspections and those results. In the meantime, DSHS says they're continuing to improve by retraining staff and making sure that employees understand their policies. But I wanted to say something kind of personal, that I've spent quite a bit of time at all 3 of those institutions, and we've been really impressed. We've seen a lot of really good things. We've met staff that were very caring and really great people, and the administration. So it's kind of hard to reconcile that, because obviously they had some big problems and some big hurdles to go over. But you have to look at the big picture, that of course there's many good things that happen there as well.
It sounds like there could be a movement, though, toward closing the institutions. Is that kind of the movement that you're detecting?
Well, there's a movement across the country, but right now in Washington State, there are no plans to do that.
The King 5 investigators continue their series, Last of the Institutions. They travel to the Midwest, to one of the states where segregation of the disabled is a thing of the past. Washington State lags behind much of the country by continuing to fund and operate 4 large facilities for people with developmental disabilities.
Experts in the field consider this a form of discrimination. Susanna Frame joins us now with a look at what she's uncovered.
Lori and Dennis, this fall we visited Minnesota, one of the states that's closed all of its institutions. What happened there more than 15 years ago, those people are very proud of, and they say their state is better off because of it. Richard Brown discovered a talent hidden inside him about a decade ago, creating beautiful pastel works of art. They're of natural wonders in the world around him. Things he didn't even know existed until the age of 21, when he finally got out of this institution, the former Faribault State Hospital for the Disabled in Minnesota.
I moved out on Tuesday, August 18th in 1970. I was so happy to move out.
Richard was born with cerebral palsy. A doctor told his family to put him in an institution when he was a toddler.
In Minnesota, overcrowded staff try to provide recreation, but with so many patients and so few staff, little can be done.
In those days, people with disabilities were treated as less than human.
This, in my opinion, represents the saddest picture that I think I've ever seen in a state institution.
The staff at Faribault treated me like a dog. They thought I was stupid, or at least treated me like that. Many times I asked myself, why in the hell am I living?
Like every other institution for the disabled in Minnesota, Faribault is closed. Today, it's a state prison. Minnesota shut its last institution down 16 years ago. Can you imagine a world in Minnesota that your institutions would still be open?
Never. Absolutely never.
Dan Reed is an expert in the field in Minneapolis. He says the people of Minnesota wanted an integrated society for every citizen. Today, even people with the most severe disabilities live in regular communities with the help they need, with access to regular opportunities.
These people are entitled to support, and they will make it for a better community. This is no joke. These people have a lot of qualities. They're fantastic people that deserve a chance.
Living in the community gives me more access to amenities that were not available while living at the institution.
Okay.
I have much more freedom over my life now as opposed to when I was in the hospitals. Yes, I am calling the shots these days.
Unlike the state of Washington, getting rid of institutions is a trend across the country. 7 states, including Idaho, are close to shutting down their last facility. And 16 states, including Minnesota, have already closed every single one. So how did they do that here in Minnesota, a state with about the same population and demographics as Washington?
You have to have leadership. And so it can start with the governor.
Advocacy groups like the ARC of Minnesota fought to close the institutions for 25 years.
It was not an easy task. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. But people worked through it and were able to proceed.
And you did it.
And we did it.
Former residents worked hard too, like David Donnelly, who has autism. So can you tell me what that is?
Cambridge State Hospital.
Mm-hmm. And how many
We tore that down.
He spent 26 years of his life in a state hospital.
I worked on to get everybody out of the state hospital.
David testified before the legislature and wrote consistently to 6 different Minnesota governors through the years. What'd they say to you?
Thank you. Did I start closing the institution?
And when that finally happened, David chipped in to help build group homes, his investment in the future. What'd you donate?
$11.
You did your part, didn't you?
That's right.
Washington still operates 4 institutions and currently has no plans to downsize or close them. Why's that?
I like this school.
You do good.
Families with loved ones living in them are big supporters, like this mom visiting her son at Lakeland Village near Spokane.
They're just marvelous with him, and I live out of state, and I couldn't do that if they didn't take such wonderful care of him.
It's okay.
In addition, the facilities are staffed by more than 2,000 Washington state employees.
Okay, there you go.
And their unions fight hard to keep those jobs.
My first reaction is sadness, and it's an abomination.
Norm Monk has worked in the field in Minnesota for 20 years.
It's morally corrupt. I mean, it's backwards. And we should be putting all our resources into getting people into the community. And that's our opportunity to break down stereotypes and raise awareness.
Perhaps the biggest step to locking up the institutions in Minnesota was sitting down with the unions. The state hammered out an agreement to create state-run group homes with staff going with the clients from the institutions into the community.
Minnesota said, as a state public policy, we're going to retain a quality workforce in the community.
Greg Devereaux is the executive director of the State Employees Union in Washington. But 20 years ago, he was in the thick of it in Minnesota.
It sounds to me like reaching that agreement and working on saving those jobs was key in Minnesota.
There's no question. You would still have the same battle in Minnesota if the parties hadn't reached that kind of agreement.
Right over here. Right through there.
People in Minnesota are the first to tell you they're not perfect. They have their own problems, like they don't have nearly enough jobs for people with developmental disabilities. But they're proud of their community and the equality it stands for.
People with disabilities are the same as people without disabilities. We all have the same feelings, passions, and aspirations. All kinds of things happened in my life, but I always believed in love. My life belongs to me.
And it's really gone very well. I mean, it's a whole different world in the sense that people are in their community. They're not housed. They belong in their community. And their community is a better place for them. And their community is a better place because of them.
And this behind me is the finished piece of art that you just saw Richard Brown working on in Minnesota. It's called Hot Summertime. Since beginning his career as an artist 12 years ago, he's found quite a bit of success. Some of his work sell for between $1,000 and $1,700. That's just one example of the types of accomplishments that people have made after moving into communities in Minnesota.
For nearly 6 months, the King 5 investigators have followed the journey of one young man with developmental disabilities.
They went along as he took the monumental step of moving out of a state-run institution into a home of his own in the community. Susanna Frame is here with her continuing series, Last of the Institutions.
What do you see? What do you see?
Oh, I love it when Sean comes home.
He's beautiful. He's a beautiful boy. He's a beautiful spirit. You're so sweet, and we're lucky that he's on there. Do you want to go outside? Is that what you're saying?
Sean Fanning doesn't speak.
Put your shoes on so you can go outside. Come here.
But just ask his mom, Julie. He can let you know exactly how he feels and what he wants.
We'll just fall out the door, why don't you?
Right now, it's time for a road trip.
Ready, handsome man? Oh, he loves going for a ride. He always has.
Going for a ride.
He loves rides and mochas.
With chocolate drizzle. Here you go, sweetheart. Yummy!
But top of the list is family.
Sean.
His mom and dad.
Yeah.
At 27 years old, he knows one word, Mom.
Yeah, Mama. Yeah.
Mama loves you.
But I never knew how much you could be loved until I had Sean. And he can't tell me he loves me, but boy, does he show me.
There you go. You're welcome.
Sean was born with Angelman syndrome, a rare genetic disorder characterized by cognitive delay, lack of speech, and in some, aggressive behaviors.
Do you want it? Come here.
During our visit in September, when Sean doesn't want to get out of the van, he hits his mom.
Sweetheart, that's the wrong one. No.
Then, still frustrated, he tries to bite her left arm.
No. He can throw me across the living room. He doesn't know what else to do.
That one won't work.
Sean's broken his sister's nose 5 times, headbutted his mom into the bathtub, and thrown her across the living room. By 15, he was too big, too strong, and too unsafe for the family.
And that's the scariest part because Sean's very strong. He's very powerful.
Sean moved to group homes, the last with horrible consequences.
I'm sorry.
The caregivers were hurting him physically.
He would have claw marks up his arm or on his... They would say he did it, and he couldn't say, no, I didn't.
With no place to go in short order, Sean ended up in one of our state's 4 institutions for the developmentally disabled, Fircrest and Shoreline. It was supposed to be a short stay. That's not what happened.
He was only supposed to be there for a month, and this month makes 2 years.
Get your tray.
The institution, with more than 200 residents, runs on a large facility schedule with limited options, privacy, or choice.
You have to eat this now, you have to have that now, you have to, now it's time for your bath, now it's time for this, now it's time for that.
Sean's mom wants more for her son.
I want him to make up his own schedule, get up when he wants, go to bed when he wants, watch what he wants.
And the difficult behaviors weren't getting better. Our cameras were rolling at a distance when Sean clashed with staff. He knocks himself to the ground, tries to headbutt the woman in green. Then, behind the railing, you can see him hit himself in the head. A chart from Fircrest shows Sean assaulting others or having self-injurious behavior about 15 times a month, every other day. Meanwhile, the state was sending out information about Sean in what's called a referral packet to see if an agency would be willing to take this challenging person on as a client in a regular neighborhood.
Sean's was scary. It had things in it that I was not, really inclined to even come and visit him at first.
This is Mary Nessel Klein, program director with the nonprofit Cascade Connections, based in Whatcom County.
Then we do it.
She's the person who said yes. Yes to taking a shot at transitioning Sean from the institution into the community.
Sean Fanning will be our most challenging client that we have transitioned into the community.
So the transition process began. Sean made visits to this home in Linden, near Bellingham, where Cascade Connections was getting ready for their new client.
Hi, Sean.
And the agency staff come often to Fircrest. On this day, Mary Nessel Klein comes for a lunch visit. And look what happens.
You know me, don't you? We've put a lot of time into making this transition work. Nobody belongs in the state institution. Everybody deserves the opportunity to have a community and to have a home and have a real life. Thank you. We'll go put it in the van together and get your stuff loaded up.
After nearly a year of visiting and getting a plan in place,
yay!
The big day is here, moving day.
Yay!
Mary and her staff show up and pack up and check out Sean.
Sean was really excited. Even just getting in the car, I think he knew that he was coming to Linden permanently.
Yay! After a 2-hour ride, it's home.
Hooray!
Home for good.
Hey!
For Sean Fanning.
It's finally here, Sean. Yay! You could tell, you could see in his eyes just the joy. Aww. Yay!
Did it work out for Sean in his new home, or did he have to go back to the institution? Find out when we come back.
It's time to go this way. We're going to go in a van.
10 weeks after Sean Fanning moved from the institution to his own home in the community, we head back. First off that day, Sean's very favorite activity.
Bubbles!
Swimming. In the 2+ years at Fircrest, he never saw a swimming pool. Here in Linden, he hits the water 6 times a week. There have been definite bumps in the road, especially at the beginning.
He pulled Staff's hair out. He broke Staff's glasses. He broke his own television.
But that was short-lived. His behavior tracking chart shows Sean going from 3 assaults a week to most of the time, none. 0. Not what they expected.
So instead, what have you seen?
Sean growing more confident and really understanding that he truly lives a self-directed life. Sean is doing what Sean chooses to do, like the rest of us in society, all day, every day.
He went from this, this little tiny bud to this humongous dinner plate rose. It's just amazing. It's beautiful.
What, baby?
In the past, during weekend visits to her house, Sean never wanted to leave. But now...
He comes home for the weekend, and I can't keep him home past Saturday afternoon. He's done. He wants to go home.
Good job. Good job. Okay.
It's what you want for any child.
Let's go see what's going on. Figure out some lunch, huh?
And now Sean has it too. This is my favorite picture in 27 years.
On the most recent weekend visit, Julie took this picture of her son, a 27-year-old man living in his own home, living his own life after a successful transition.
Because he has freedom, and he has what every other person on earth wants. Sean is no longer a prisoner in a chaotic world.
Down here.
He's a human being in his own home.
It was a good day. Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
And that's what you get, is that beautiful face right there when you're happy.
We had a great time spending that much time with Sean, and so happy that he's had all that success so far in the community. But it's also been a success financially. According to DSHS, caring for a high-needs person like Sean at Fircrest costs about $345,000 a year. But at Cascade Connections, the state's spending less than half of that at around $150,000 a year. So
that's significant. And he did look very happy.
Oh, just thrilled.
Admittedly a tough case, but there are measurements that show
right. I think
it's been positive.
The biggest telling point is that he can't wait to get back to his own house now.
Yes.
And she said he has never been like that, ever.
All right. Susanna, thanks.
Thanks.
Welcome back. Tonight we want to bring you an update to the King 5 Investigator series, Last of the Institutions.
The multi-part series showed how people with severe developmental disabilities such as autism and cerebral palsy can live successfully outside the confines of our state's 4 remaining institutions for the disabled.
As King 5 Susanna Frame reports, the series has set in motion more resources to help people with disabilities.
Since November, we've brought you a first-of-its-kind series. Last of the Institutions exposed the state's continued segregation of people who haven't broken any laws or done anything wrong. They were simply born with a developmental disability.
The question is really kind of how and when.
Charlie Lakin is a national expert in the field.
To see them as sort of a different species that would want to live their life in a way that's different than the rest of us want to live our life is unfortunate and frankly discriminatory.
We showed how Washington lags behind much of the country in institutionalizing people with disabilities. Unlike most states, we still operate 4 large facilities: Fircrest in Shoreline, the Rainier School in Buckley, the Yakima Valley School in Sela, and Lakeland Village outside of Spokane.
Hey, Youssef, come here.
Let's try this.
The series highlighted how people with even the most severe needs, like Yusuf Khosrow,
Yes.
can thrive out in the community with the right supports. That these citizens have the right to be believed in as contributing members of society, such as finding employment. Ron Davids is Yusuf's job coach.
Our goal is that every human being finds a place to work, because work is not just something important that people do, but it's something which gives us value. Very good. Okay. Thank you. Nice work today. It's something which in our culture says you are a fully integrated member of society, and that's our goal.
2 months after the series launched, DSHS made a policy change, one to help people move out of institutions quicker.
Ready? Good.
Agencies that support clients in the community started receiving this notice from the state, detailing an exciting opportunity to receive more funding to help transition people with challenging support needs from institutions to community-based living.
This is more funding for me to better prepare my staff.
Good job.
Mary Nessa Klein has worked in the field for 22 years and has never seen the state offer more to help people with disabilities move out into regular neighborhoods.
Let's go see what's going on. Figure out some lunch, huh?
Usually news is we're cutting this, we're cutting that. Do more with less money.
But this time,
I was thrilled. Thank you. I think it'll really help.
Our reports also showed political and emotional barriers that help keep the institutions running. They provide over 2,000 state jobs, jobs their unions fiercely defend. On top of that, many families with loved ones fight tooth and nail to keep the facilities open. We spoke to many who think their brother, sister, or child could never make it in the real world.
would any of you at this point consider moving this person in your life into the community?
No. But since the series began, there's been a change of heart for many people. A state program to help families move their loved ones out of the institutions, the Family Mentor Project, has seen its enrollment skyrocket by 400%.
Since your series started, my client base has quadrupled. Between the last couple of weeks and by the end of April, I have 9 people moving. And that's more than I've had in the last 18 months. And this is a wonderful story.
Rosemary Kruger is in charge of the program.
We've just had lots of meetings.
For the past 5 years, she's helped dozens of people move out of institutions by working with family members.
This picture was taken right at Rainier.
Many of them, like Barbara Dropboom, very nervous about the idea. Her brother was a resident at the Rainier School.
Who was going to feed him? Who was going to free his food? He wasn't toilet trained for quite a long time.
It's no wonder Barbara worried about moving her brother Mark out of Rainier.
Come on, bud. You want to try?
He's nonverbal and needs help with all of his basic needs. And Rainier was home for most of his life, 52 years.
Do you think you would have made this move without the Family Mentor Project?
I would not have done it.
With the help and support of the Family Mentor Project, Mark moved from Rainier at the age of 63 to a home in Puyallup with around-the-clock caregivers. A drastic change for a person who knew nothing but the structured routine of an institution for more than 5 decades.
What's going on, buddy?
How's it gone? Everyone around Mark can tell he's a happier man.
Can I scratch your back? Back there? Okay.
He's getting the best care he could possibly get. And he goes out and does real things.
Come on. When the loved one is nonverbal, it's an extra scary decision for the parent or guardian because they don't know for sure what their loved one is thinking. But after the move, they can tell how much happier they are, how free they are.
Let's go enjoy some sun.